What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with the Hunters. I am joined by my co-host,
Nick Gigante.
and our amazing guest here, Gabe Deck. Gabe is a credible architect in the city of Philadelphia. He's the CEO and founder of Gnome Architecture. In 2023, he collected a few awards. The Emerging Architect Award in Philadelphia for 2023. Also for Bucks County, he won an AIA as well. And then the Vine, Gabe, correct me if I'm wrong, that also was awarded for the historic preservation and the adaptive reuse of that building.
That's correct.
Amazing. So resume is there. How long have you guys been in business, your company, so far?
So we've been operating since about 2013. Started the business out of a room in my house, doing very small scale work. Brought on Derek Spencer, my current partner, back in like 2016, 2017, and have grown the business since then. We're a team of 11 right now.
Amazing.
Located down in the Bach School in South Philadelphia.
That's right. Great building, by the way, the Bach.
Yeah.
Awesome building to have. Definitely an upgrade, I guess, from the house. But you guys have a great background. I want to get into how you started in the first place in your house, right? Just the beginning steps. But before that, Nick, you want to share how you guys know each other back from the old days?
So, funny enough, obviously what brought me to Philadelphia was going to Temple University. Probably the first person I met was Gabe. And, me and Gabe went to Temple together. We were roommates together for a majority of the years. We had a ton of parties together. And
you were in my wedding.
I was in your wedding. Yeah. So I've known Gabe for years, and funny enough, like I was always into the real estate. Gabe was always into obviously architecture. And it was funny because we used to joke and we would be like, yeah, one day you're going to design my home, which he actually did in Point Breeze. And it was cool because we both basically started off the route that many people would do. You go to college, you work for a company, but then it's like, you know what, let's start our own businesses. And that's what Gabe did with the architecture route. It was working for an architecture firm, knew that he could do it himself. And then he just, took the step. And that's the whole reason for the podcast. It's about entrepreneurialism. It's about motivation. It's about mindset. So it's like, I think you kind of providing the steps that you took to do that and kind of like having the confidence in yourself and your abilities that could, help somebody else out there that might be in the same position. So yeah, like to talk about that. So it's like when you were working for, what was it, WRT, right?
Yeah, I worked for Wallace Robertson Todd, WRT, national scale firm, headquartered here in Philadelphia. I worked with them for 7 or 8 years. I graduated from Temple. It was the first job out of school. And I was with them and only them until breaking off on my own. But, with the recession, 2008 and everything, like I kind of had to think about other possibilities for employment, not quite sure where the architecture thing was going to go. Got my real estate license and did a very short stint doing real estate, some sales.
That's really cool. How was that?
It was short-lived. I burned myself out pretty quick, because I was working full-time at my day job and then doing that on nights and weekends. So it was a lot. But the relationships I made doing that, relationships of developers, developing a lot of stuff in Point Breeze. So that was like a big piece of it. And once they kind of caught wind that I was also trained as an architect and working as an architect, I suddenly had requests for plans for houses, for additions, for roof decks, that kind of thing. And given the opportunity to kind of take a leap of faith and quit my job and start a business. So that was kind of like the early inception of Gnome. But yeah, I was out of a spare bedroom of my house in Point Breeze and was out of that space for like 3 years or so, did a number of projects, and that's kind of took it off. Yeah.
That's incredible. I live in Point Breeze now with my girlfriend. We're on 20th and Dickinson in that area.
He lives on Woodstock Street.
I live right on Woodstock.
So Gabe's first house was...
You're on Woodstock?
Yeah, it was on the 1500 block of Woodstock Street.
That's exactly where we're at. We're 15.
2009.
We're 1514.
You're
1514.
I'm 1513.
Right across the street. So we're goody. I don't know if you knew the buyer who bought your property.
That's so funny.
That's
Small
great.
World.
I walk out, I see your house every day. Seems like a really organic start. You're out there, you're just kind of hustling, you're making relationships, you're connecting, you're working every day. And then it's like, oh, wow, people need me to do this for them. And I think at the time, Point Breeze was really expanding. There was a lot of new construction, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was, I kind of, I've said this in a couple different ways to different people, but like, it was kind of like a time where anyone could have started a business in architecture because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
Everybody needed plans. So, it was perfect timing for me. I had work to keep me busy full time on day one when I quit my job and really kind of put the full focus on it. So, you can't ask for like a better opportunity. So I owe, everything to that opportunity. But yeah, it was really just like the mindset of, you just got to figure it out. Now I'm working for myself, put the pieces together, figure out how to get the first projects through permitting in the city and all the steps involved, who to talk to get the right answers to things. So you kind of realize that everyone else who started a business had to figure it out as well. And I learned that as well. And that's kind of been the attitude moving forward. You just figure out how to solve problems to get to the solution you need to move on to the next thing that's in front of you.
I talk with a lot of builders and I'm like, you don't know how important it is to have like the right architect, because especially in the city of Philadelphia, it's like the way submissions go through, the angle, exactly what the objections are going to be on certain projects, I'm sure, things like of that nature. I don't know if you could add to that.
Philly is its own animal, and there's a lot of people who will work in Philly, but also a lot of people who won't work in Philly just because of how complex the permitting process can be, all the different agencies and offices that are involved for any building permit that needs to be released. But, our firm, we focus on Philadelphia and have focused on Philadelphia since the beginning. So we've stumbled through it, learned the lessons, got to know the right people to get things through and understand the process as best we can. But even with that said, like, it's an ever evolving, changing thing. Like there are new bulletins and adjustments to the zoning code, adjustments to the building code that are happening weekly in the city. And we do our best to like try to stay on top of it. But a lot of times, we're finding out a new law or bill or something for the first time when we submit a project and we get hit for it because it was passed 2 weeks ago, kind of a thing. So it's Philly's tough to stay, ahead of all the changes that are always happening. And, there's always different changes that are put in place for the right reasons. There's a lot of safety concerns about construction. We've all seen all the collapses that have happened. So all the evolving conservative approach to permitting is for a good reason. I do believe that, for safety. But it just makes our job that much more challenging. And, for someone who's not familiar with Philly, it's a tough place to just start doing permitting projects in for that reason.
Are you bridging out to any other areas? Like, have you done anything? And because I just know a lot of the developers here have spread out to like Jersey, even as far as Florida.
Yeah.
Are you guys doing anything like in other areas?
Yeah. So we're licensed in New Jersey. We're licensed in New York. We've done projects as far out as Colorado. We're doing projects all over the place. I would say our focus right now is still very much in Philadelphia, but we're seeing a lot of our clientele move out into different areas outside of the city. Some of the, we're just Philly focused developers are doing suburban developments, whether it's multifamily or single family development. So we're seeing a shift towards the suburbs. We're seeing a shift to more work over in Jersey, the shore towns as well. We're starting to do a bit more there. And then, as you mentioned, Florida's been a big shift from Philly people down to working in Florida. We've seen a lot of that as well. So
I feel like right now it's like, where's the heat? Where are people buying? Where's the demand at? We're going there. But what's a big reason you attest to maybe people extending outside the city?
I think it's a lot of reasons. Like, as I mentioned, things are getting more complicated for Philadelphia. All of the process of permitting it's only getting tougher day by day. It's only getting more expensive. Permit fees, just the cost of doing business in Philadelphia for construction is only getting more expensive. And I think, frankly, a lot of people are getting frustrated by it. And, they figure I can go do this in another city, another township that is a little easier to deal with. So I'm hearing a lot of clients say those types of things.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's very valid.
And that's like the concerning thing because, it's like you saw like Philly was on fire. Like Philly was just really making strides back in 2013 to
right around when you started the company.
Yeah,
you both started the company.
Yeah, it was just the amount of construction, the amount of like there was just more. I feel like positivity regards to growth and like, what's coming. And not to say like there isn't a ton of stuff. I mean, you look, we're here on Delaware Avenue. There's all these big buildings that are coming up, but it's just been a lot of negativity maybe. And it might just bring in a new generation of builders that come in after that, I feel like we are seeing positive effects of new buildings coming, through right now. But it is concerning where you see a lot of these people that helped build the city invest a ton of money. That brings in taxes to the city. It helps improve quality of life. That tax money could be used for other city services. Schools need tax money. And if you have this kind of like overall feeling of, we want to get out of the city, we want to go to places that are more business friendly, basically, and that we can get our projects through. I mean, I talked to some guys in Jersey. They're like, we'll build single family houses, soup to nuts, and, with permitting and getting approvals and everything, 4 to 6 months. Yeah. Try doing that here. You're talking 12 to 16 months, and then you're talking, it's all borrowed money, it's interest, it costs more at the end of the day. So you can't blame them for going out, but it's like the city should hopefully make things a little bit easier. But I do feel like Mayor Parker they have that initiative to kind of like overall L&I.
Yes,
something.
I'm optimistic as well. There's also just the factor of just like how much development has happened so quickly and just what's kind of left as far as vacant land to develop in a lot of neighborhoods, right? I mean, you can always keep pushing out, and there's always still going to be areas to move into as far as, opportunity with vacant land. But a lot of the neighborhoods close to Center City have been built out pretty intensely, and there's not a whole lot left. And, developers are getting more creative to piece together more complex developments just because of what's left. Yeah. And what's still available. So that's getting tough too.
I always say it's like if people could develop in Manhattan, you like think about like the density. It's like there's still a ton of opportunity, but you're right. They just have to they're more complex.
Yeah, they're more complex.
And for Manhattan, in terms of L&I there, it's not nearly as bad. Like people still want to get business done in Manhattan, whereas it just seems in Philly, it's one of those cities that it's just like there's a lot of friction points when you're going through that process, and you know it better than anybody else. I think that's another point that I'll make to anyone who's just looking for maybe a single family build of their own. Going to someone like Gabe and getting advice and consultation is probably the best person you could go to, more than even an agent. You have much more experience working with them. So anyone who's building in the city can consider this guy like the guru for real. So just keep that in mind. In terms of projects that you're seeing in the city, and quickly before I ask that, you said something about expansion, right? Once the prime land kind of goes, where do we go next? Any neighborhoods that you're very excited to see come up, or that you think might see some, funding and new construction coming soon?
I can't really like pinpoint any particular neighborhood. I mean, we've seen shifts happen in like where our projects are right now. We have more projects that have pushed out towards like Germantown, Chestnut Hill. We've had more projects push up the North American Street Corridor. I think both of those just because of opportunity and vacant land that's like in those areas. So, we're seeing a lot less work in Point Breeze, in Graduate Hospital, in parts surrounding Center City, but I do think that's mostly just because of like what's available, what's left. But pushing up kind of 95 that direction, there's been a lot more new developers that have approached us for getting creative around like big industrial lots that are there. And, they all require a zoning process because everything's zoned industrial, but everyone wants to build residential. So we're seeing that a lot more as well.
Well, that actually kind of segues into my second question. I appreciate that insight too, because I'm going to start looking in those areas before it officially blows up. But I do hear those areas a lot, Mount Airy, and then of course, Northeast Philadelphia. In terms of projects that you're doing right now, anything that you're really excited about, plans that you're making, and also what is kind of your ideal plan to put together? Is it a mixed-use building, residential, or just a single-family townhome development? What's kind of your ideal situation?
Sure. So I would say, what we've been excited about lately, a couple of projects that have gotten some good recognition and that we were able to execute very well, working with close relationships with the builders that we're working with. Close by to here is 17 West Girard, which wrapped up earlier this year. It's got us a lot of good exposure. It's a very small building.
I'm going to cross from garage.
Correct.
That nice window with
the curved windows.
Yep.
Yeah,
circular windows. So that was built by a close relationship we had with the developer who's also a contractor. And, I give all the credit to Derek Spencer, my business partner. He really kind of held the feet to the fire, if that's the term, to really kind of execute properly on the details and everything, and worked very closely to pull that off.
Was that Sean Pincus?
Sean Pincus
it was,
Grit
right?
Construction.
Yeah. Grit's a shout out. You guys also did Wendell, or was it Wendell Place together that you also did?
Yep. Yeah, Wendell.
Another great project.
Place. Yeah. So we've done a number of projects with them. I mean, Grit built my own house when I moved into to Fishtown back in 2020. So yeah, we've had a relationship with them for quite some time, and another reason why we've been able to grow is just because we've made good relationships with a lot of developers and builders who recommend us.
Yeah. And I want to touch on that for just a second. I think that's such a great point you make. You're an incredible, business person. You can do the job very well, and you're creative, and your plans are beautiful. But your ability to create relationships and just make people feel like, I have your back, feels like you've always been able to do that. As a client of yours right now, we're actually doing our first new development, Pika Realty Group, and you put the plan together years ago. They were kind of buried for 2.5 years, and I picked up the phone. You were right there to answer all my questions and kind of get me through that process. So in terms of relationships, did you recognize that early on? And I think any business owner needs to hear this. Did you recognize relationships were the most important thing, or did you realize that later on?
Tough to say. I mean, it's always been something that's been important to me before starting the business, but it is critical, in my line of work. We rely on repeat business. We rely on referrals. We want to see our clients happy with our product. That's the most important thing, and the thing that I get the most satisfaction out of is like creating something that people, it solves their problems. It creates a space for them to live in, to profit from, what have you. And, that's what it's all about. So we have to have a good relationship with our clients to be happy in the work we do.
What's your favorite project that you're working on right now? Is there anything else that's like the new 17 West Girard or?
Yeah, I mean, we have a few pretty exciting projects. We have
I saw the Delancey Street.
Yeah. So that 24th and Delancey,
incredible block.
Yeah. Great block. That project has a great story. It was a 2-story, kind of very minimalist, like concrete building. It had a fire. It was a single family house, had a fire. New owners approached us to kind of get creative to fit in a ton of stuff they needed to accomplish into it. There was a young family, in the end, we fit, 5 bedrooms into it with, they needed to have a workout room and play areas for their kids. They want to have all these outdoor spaces. So we did kind of a vertical addition. It also was a historic project, so I had to go through the historic approval process with the Philadelphia Historic Commission. So it was pretty challenging. Turned out really nice. Shout out to High Bar Construction. They pulled off a great build on that. But yeah, we're actively, trying to put some focus on that and market it. And we have some award submissions that we're putting in for right now. So we're optimistic that it'll get some good exposure for us.
Just keep adding to those resumes. And just a side note really quickly, I'm actually going on a tour at 4:30, so about 45 minutes for the viewers, to 2055 East Dolphin Street. I believe you just did those plans 5-6 years ago. So I'm really excited to walk through that building with my buyers today. They have it up for 1.425, which I think is pretty cheap for your work. But yeah, I'm really excited to see that. That looks incredible.
With the Historical Commission, because I just know a lot of viewers aren't going to understand, what comes into play when you're working with them?
It's a great question.
Basically, like, I know it has a lot to do with the facade, the windows, basically the exterior of everything has to be approved through them, right?
Pretty much. I mean, the purpose of Historical Commission's oversight in a lot of the neighborhoods and the buildings in Philadelphia is to maintain the historic fabric, to make sure it's taken care of, appreciated, and not lost. And especially in these historically sensitive areas, to insert new buildings that are completely out of context, look, way out of place, like is what their job is to prohibit, make sure that there's a thoughtful approach and like a historical, respect that's given to the surrounding context. So for us, every building that we do in a historic district or affecting a historic building has a different approach depending on the history. It's very site specific. So we always, we'll connect with the Historic Commission as a step one. We'll reach out to them and say, hey, what do you have on this piece of property? What should we be mindful of? What's important to the history of this? What are you going to be looking for and focusing on for like whatever we do here?
It's almost like when you call a seller, it's like, what kind of terms should we bring you?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. You just want to make sure that you're presenting something that's going to fit.
Yeah, well, you got to set yourself up for success, right? It's because they will ultimately review and scrutinize and, give you revision. Typically it's just being mindful and sensitive to the surrounding buildings, the surrounding context. So they always want the massing, the size and scale of the building to somehow relate as best it can to the adjacent context. Window alignments, making sure the window rhythms on the block, materiality is a big thing. So if you're on a red brick block and you're putting a building that's in there, they're likely going to want to see something that's red brick as well. So their job is not to force you to replicate historic building. It's really just to be contextual, to be sensitive, to be respectful of making sure it does fit into the surrounding.
Selfishly, I'm grateful that they do that because I love the history. I love the historic feel of the city. If it all looked like the titanium buildings that we see in Brewery Town, I think I'd really lose my mind. So I love that.
That's the sad part too. It's like there's so much shit construction. I feel like there's so much budget construction in the city.
Yeah.
And you see like Graduate Hospital, I feel like is a perfect example of like you had like a first wave of construction, there was a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
And then that stuff can only last about a decade, 15 years. And then you had new people buy it and then have to like rehaul a lot of the stucco issues and stuff like that. And you see like when people have rebought them, they've kind of like addressed those issues, made them like look a lot better. But for years, it was the stucco bays with like just throwing up the metal sheathing. There was a couple projects on Wharton Park in Point Breeze. And remember, I got denied. I was extremely pissed off about this one thing. I had Gabe put together beautiful plans to do. I needed a variance, but I'd bring my kid to Wharton Park. Wharton Park's a beautiful park in Point Breeze.
I run around it every morning.
Yeah, it's mature trees. It's a nice, beautiful square park. And part of like the park, part of like the experience of a park are the buildings around it. You know what I mean? That's like Manhattan, like Central Park.
Want to live on the park.
You want to live on the park, So anyway, there's a couple of those old school buildings with the metal soffits and you know what I mean? And if you see, there's one where some guy bought it. It was a shell, I remember it. And they just totally bastardized the whole entire thing. You had all this beautiful metal fabrication, you know what I mean? The spires and stuff like that.
Yeah. And
they just put metal sheathing over it. And you're like...
And that's why you have like a lot of neighborhoods pushing for historic designation as well.
Yeah.
Because so you can prohibit things like that from happening.
Yeah.
Demolition happening.
Yep.
So there's good and bad to like that push for the historic designation.
Now for you, Gabe, what would be your dream? Would it be building big units in the city or kind of developments maybe in the suburbs? What would you lean towards?
So personally, like I've always liked the smaller scale projects myself, working with homeowners to help them kind of solve their problems and create a solution for them has always been like what I enjoy the most. So we've been pushing a lot more business development towards the suburbs, towards kind of the single family homeowner clientele. Got a lot of work going on up in Bucks County right now as well. More work happening out on the main line and just pushing in those directions. Business-wise, we are doing that. And then we're also really pushing towards the multifamily work in Philly as well as outside of Philly. So developing relationships and meeting new clients that are looking to do, apartment buildings, condo buildings, that kind of thing. So we are very much still like in that push as well.
Yeah.
So I always say my partner and I have really good synergy in that. He's a bit more focused on the development push, developer project push. I'm more kind of focused on the homeowner push of things, and it's working really well to grow our business.
And that's such a healthy mix. You don't want to have both guys or gals going in the same direction and being experts in that one thing, whereas you're an expert really understanding what clients need at a single family level. He's maybe working just set with developers looking to push and try to get as much revenue as possible with little to no cost.
The residential stuff is, who knows how long it's going to last for too. It's in Philly, we see a shift happening with less of the single family scale work going on, both because of just the scarcity of the land, as well as just, maybe things haven't moved as quickly on the single family side in the city versus out in the suburbs. So, there's a lot of reasons for the ebbs and flows going on.
I feel like, as an architect, I would definitely be wanting to develop some millionaire's home, you know what I mean? Where like you could really, I feel like
it's, you want a good budget. You always want a good budget.
You want a good budget where you could be free to design. And I hate to say it, it's like in Philly, it's very townhouse row homes. They're square parcels. So you can get creative, like Delancey Street, 17 Gerard. You can get creative, but there's only, to a certain degree, you're constrained.
Yeah, you're definitely constrained.
So if you have 3-acre parcel, it's like, listen, I got money. I want to, it's like, you're an artist. It's like, get to work, show me.
It's a new way to approach design. Like having done so much design on these small parcels where you're constrained, there's only 6 different ways to lay out this row home based on the size of it. Once you get out into these big swaths of land and bigger properties, like you got to kind of like change your approach completely to how you design for a developer or a homeowner.
I feel like for someone like you, that's got to be a blast. What do you?
Oh yeah, it's great. I mean that I do less and less design, unfortunately, just like running a business, which is kind of the reality of things. And we're working to like, create processes and efficiencies within our office to allow myself and my partner to do work things that we want to do. It is great once I can, choose the project that I want to like work on and it has a good budget and a good client. Like that is the truth.
Say a good client too. Like I feel like that is something like in the development space, they're always trying to cut costs. But a good client who's like, this is for me, not for profit, not for revenues, anything like that. It's just such an enjoyable experience.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, homeowners, it's for them. They're going to live there. So they want it done a certain way and they're willing to spend money. I still think developers, we have a lot of great developer clients that recognize good design, that recognize the value of, putting a little bit more effort and money into the design, the materiality, making a special moment in the building. And, that translates into revenue for them in setting themselves apart from their competition. If they can create a product that has some interest around it, they pay special attention to the experience of their tenants and like how, making sure all of the rooms are very functional, furnishable, and they have the right amenities that, it translates directly into revenue ultimately.
And that's true. Like there's so many times I've represented builders and it's like you get the renderings and they're like, this is beautiful. But then once you get the guy who's just, they water it down. You know what I mean? They don't want to pay for what makes it look nice, knowing that, you probably will get a higher price point, but you got to take a risk there.
Yeah.
And some of these people are, again, not all of them. There's a lot of, like you said, a lot of good builders that do respect good design and aesthetics and stuff like that. But then you have those people that are just budget builders and you're like, you're doing a disservice to everybody, like.
And that was a big thing. Like I think in like the early boom days of when I started the business in 2013 and all the big development pushes, like everybody was a developer, everybody was getting projects built and, for good and for bad reasons, they are not all doing it anymore. You know what I mean? And that's the city cracking down on a lot of the process and things getting more expensive and complicated has weeded out a lot of developers that were, just kind of doing it passively or, not very versed in what they were doing. And I think that's also limited how much of just the types of buildings that are just slapped together.
Yeah.
You're not seeing that as much anymore just because you have more like legit focused, hardcore, like full-time developers that are doing it now versus the alternative.
A selfish question for me is, as I'm getting more into development, what have you seen amongst the clients that have developed tons of units and are still around? What's made them so successful that you've worked with them and partnered with them on some deals? Like what's made those really great developers great?
Yeah, I mean, they just have the ability, like you said, it starts with the relationships. They have the relationships to source the right people to do the right parts of the process. Whether it's acquiring the land, whether it's moving through the zoning and permitting process, whether it's the design, they have the relationships in place. They know who to go to and, where to draw the line on what they can do well versus what they can have someone else do better for them. So, that's a big piece of it. I think like they need to have just the realistic understanding of and some forecasting of like where things are going by the time their product is complete. What the trends of the neighborhoods, the vacancy rates of different areas, if it's an apartment building, that kind of thing, the saturation that might be happening in a certain area. They need to take a close look and be realistic about like what it's going to look like once their product is built, and whether or not they're going to be able to fill that building, sell that building, etc.
Yeah. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's those guys who can really effectively work backwards from the end, understand where they're going to be when it's all.
Good way to put it.
They have a good idea of that, then they should be.
It's a big leg up.
Should be fine.
Sure. You can't control everything.
Can't control everything. Definitely starting to understand that in my first project. So
yeah.
So I want to do last 5 minutes here, a quick story time. Any projects that, were either funny, amazing, inspiring, maybe sad, a story you'd like to share with the audience.
I got one story that I'm going to follow up with after his story.
You got a story about me?
Yeah, about us in college. And I wanted to talk about the Fishtown house.
Okay.
The Fishtown house.
See if anything stirs my lip.
Yeah. So when we were at Temple, we were in the dorms, our first and second year. And funny enough, how we all got started in real estate was through Uri Fibish, Uri Fibish, obviously well-known developer in Point Breeze. He was in our dorm on the same hallway as ours at Cecil B. Moore, I believe. Yeah. 1300. That's. So anyway, our junior year, we end up renting this house in Fishtown. Dude, unbelievably beautiful house. Like, corner property. Check this. The guy who owned it was he moved to San Francisco, or he lived in San Francisco and just owned it as like an investment. He bought it for $80,000. Bought it. This is early Fishtown years. This is probably 2004 or 5.
Yeah, 2004 probably.
2004 or 5. So anyway, this house was a corner house. It had a massive living room that used to be like a video rental shop. That was our living room.
It was like a CMX property?
It was actually a house, but they just had it it was like one of those corner homes that had like the beautiful soffit, like very elegant brick design, you know what I mean? Our living room used to be like a video rental store. It was a big living room.
Shelves everywhere. And then it was like hardwood floor throughout. It had 2 stairs going into the basement, 2 stairs going to the second floor. It had like the service, like one of the stairs was almost like a ladder. It felt like big kitchen, you know what I mean? Laundry room. And then it was like the top floor had its own living room with 2 bedrooms. That's where I lived with this other kid, and our own bathroom. And then on top of it, then he had a carriage house with parking, and it wasn't finished, but with like the living quarters above it. And the guy bought it for $80,000. And we rented that thing for I think the whole house was like $1,600 a month. So anyway, but the parties we would throw there were awesome. We would go to this place down in South Philly on Patterson Avenue, and we had ordered ahead of time. We would get ice luges. That was like our claim to fame. We would get
luges.
We would get the big ice luge and then put like the light, like the blue light behind it. And, that would have the 2 carvings down it. So you'd like get the cute chick that you want and be like, yeah, take an ice luge shot with me. You know what I mean?
Genius.
Yeah,
starting with the end in mind.
Yeah.
The end in mind.
Funny enough, Gabe met his wife to be at one of those parties. Yep. Alex. Yep.
Did you ice luge? Did you do it together? Was it the first?
Of course.
That was the first step.
Of course. And the funniest thing, 2 things that were funny. That was before Uber days. So we were off campus. So we would literally call up all these taxi cab companies and be like, listen, we're throwing a party. Our party's ending at 2, 3 a.m. or whatever. Just start sending cars. So that people, you know what I mean? So we would have that all figured out. And then at the end, when everybody would leave, we would just be hammered, drunk. We would take the ice luge and then proceed on smashing in the backyard. That was the ceremonial where the party's over.
Since Nick was talking about our history living together and how that translates to the architecture, being roommates with Nick, you had to learn a lot about the guy. And I had the luxury of designing his house for him from Breeze, 10, 12 years ago, whatever that was. And no, what was that? Not that long. 14, 15?
Oh, yeah, probably, actually. Yeah, it's probably 10 years. Yeah.
But one thing I learned about this guy living there is loves to drink his coffee. You know that Nick is not too far away. You start finding half-drank coffee cups placed throughout the house, just with been there for a couple days maybe.
Yeah.
It's got the oil slick from him dipping his toast into it and whatever. So.
I love buttered toast. Preferably English muffins,
Mm-hmm.
buttered. The brazen ones are the best. Dipping it in my coffee and eating it's the best. If you've never tried it.
We designed his house and like we incorporated a little, lookout balcony on the 3rd floor off of your primary bedroom.
Yeah.
I always was thinking that someday he'd like get a lawsuit with a coffee cup fall off the summiting tumble. They just collect them.
Nothing happened, right? I guess you were good for the time you were there.
Yeah.
No incidences.
No incidents, other than someone suing me for some slip and fall that I was. You got served.
Maybe
too.
it was one of your oil slick.
Yeah,
It might have been.
It might have been.
Yeah. We'll save that story for everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, Gabe. I appreciate the time. And one last thing is, we want to raise awareness to suicide prevention. I'm going to have a link in our the bottom of our YouTube description here where you can go on and donate. We all know that we have someone struggling to speak with someone. So I think that's something that we want to get behind, Nick and I, with the Hunters, and donate a lot to. So please find that link and subscribe. If you guys like the content that people we're bringing on, such as Gabe, please like and subscribe to our channel. Nick and I are going to be bringing more people in just like this and building that community of growth-minded, heart-centered people who are just very genuine in what they do. And obviously badasses at what they do as well. So
absolutely.
Thank you for taking the time. We'll catch you guys next episode.